Let's get started, everyone. So, I know koalas can be cute but intimidating because how soft and furry their outer layer is. And I want to show how I'm going to approach this painting. So, fur can look quite intimidating in the beginning because you feel like where should you start? How many layers do you need? How to make it look really soft and not like some rough texture. So yes, it can be a little challenging in the beginning, but if your watercolor techniques are right, then you can make softer. But it takes a little bit time because you have to really put a lot of layers and you have to work wet on wet. So when I say wet on wet, what it really means is as soon as I put some wet paint or just plain water, I have to put another layer of paint. With a different consistency and work with it. This takes a little bit of practice, but I'll show you how we can tackle this. So we're going to paint at least some part of the painting wet on wet, and the rest part of the painting, we're going to let it dry and then paint dry on it. I'll explain you some of the techniques to keep it simple. When it comes to colors really, there are very few colors here. Most of it is very warm. As you can see yellows or yellow ochre, browns, light browns, dark browns, um, bit of orange or red tones, and just a little bit of green and purple here, which are the only cool colors here. So don't worry too many about the colors. Whatever you have, work with it. I just need a lighter brown and darker brown. And other than that, the most important thing you need to understand here is how to make it look real, three-dimensional in watercolors, which can be a little tricky in the beginning. What you really need to understand is these lighter areas and these darker areas. So when I say lighter, which means we're going to put less paint or no paint at all, or leave some empty gaps, but the rest we're going to add a little bit of more paint, thicker paint. As you can see, this is the darkest area here, and these are the dark areas or the nose. These are the dark areas that is really going to define the structure of the koalas here. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that's most important here is treat everything as just values, light or dark, and the shapes that are important here. Everything else, don't worry too much if you put more brown or more blue or anything like that. It's totally fine. But our whole idea here is to make this look real, realism. Okay, realistic watercolors. So that's what we're going to focus on. With colors, I'll show you what my palette is. See, I have this dark purple here, really dark brown, almost like sepia, and brown, some yellows, again, another yellow ochre, some pink, or you can say any red that you have. Okay, so we're going to just keep those colors here. And whatever you have, you can work with that. So we'll get started with our palette. So just take your colors in the palette. I'm going to keep my reference images in front of me. I always keep the black and white images because it's very important for me to keep looking at my photograph and see how dark or how light anything is. So we'll get started. Just remember, take it slow. It's okay if it doesn't come right for you in the beginning, because for some, watercolors can look very challenging, and this is the first time they're doing. The most important thing is to enjoy this painting. It's the new year, and I am sure everybody has new artistic goals. So the more you enjoy something, the easier it'll become. So don't stress. So let me show you one wet on wet technique. Okay, I'm going to take this light brown here. Okay, do a small patch. Now I'm going to just wait it for like a few seconds and take a little darker brown and little thicker paint, which means less water. Okay. And you can see right now it's all smudging away. Uh, Sometimes I will need this kind of texture, but otherwise, for really little darker areas, I'm going to just wait it out a little bit, a few more seconds, and then you can see that they will not spread out the way it is. It's not going to bloom. So a little more. I'm going to just wait out. Let it lose its sheen. If you can see, there is a sheen that you'll see on the um, paper. I'm going to just dry it out a little bit. You can just test it out. Not yet. So if you really want the mark of whatever paint stroke you're doing to stay there and not just bloom away, then wait. If it's just blooming, that means there's too much water or it's really wet. Okay. So let's say if I just want to make this, you can see that that mark has stayed there. It did not bloom. Okay. So this is a good time if I really want some marks. So this is called wet on wet technique. Okay. So this is something that we're going to do a lot. And some of the techniques will completely dry, which means we'll let the whole thing dry and then work on it. So where do we start? Okay. There are two koalas here, sorry. And you can see that this is a little lighter one here in the front, and this is a little darker one here. Let's start with light. Except for this area, everything else is really light. So I'm just going to take a few uh, paints, make them little juicy by adding some water, okay? Because I'm going to work wet on wet. I'm just going to add some water, make it look juicy because I want to work quickly. And a little bit of this darker one as well. Okay, because once the paper is wet, your paints have to be ready. Otherwise, what's going to happen is start drying quickly. Now, it's really dry inside where I'm sitting. So I keep spraying water and it dries very quickly. So this also depends on how much humidity is in your room. Okay. Um, I'm going to keep it very simple, keeping it just, we can start from here. I'm going to wet it a little bit. And I keep looking at my black and white picture to see how dark or how light this needs to be. Okay. I'll take a little bit of yellow, some ochre. It has to be really light. You can always add paint later. But if you already put too much paint, it's very hard to get rid of them, especially if it's a staining paint. And also, your painting starts to look beaten up and dull. Okay, so you can see that I am just taking in a few colors. And adding some. While this is already wet, I'll add some thick paint so that that dark paint settles here a little bit. Okay, it's just an opportunity I'm seeking here. Now it's time to let go of this area because I want to let it dry and not overwork a lot. Okay. Next, I want to tackle this area. Why? It's really light. I want to do the light areas first. Okay, same way. I am just going to take some similar, some yellows, some browns, some areas more darker than the other. Okay. You can see that I'm working layer by layer slowly because watercolor is built on layers. You cannot just take a thick slab of paint like in acrylics or oil and cover it. Also, fixing watercolors can be a little tricky, especially if you have not painted enough. So, it's always important that you work in layers slowly. The only thing that you require in watercolors is patience. If you can develop a little bit of patience, you can work with this medium very well. And that takes time and practice. So look, we got two layers here. Okay. Then how about we work with this? See, I'm not directly getting into the face or this area because again, when people look at faces or eyes, they can feel like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this or fix it or ruin it. So that's why I'm going with the very easy areas so that you get a little bit of confidence of painting and your strokes and your paints and your water, right? I'm going to do the same thing what I've been doing. Put some water. Okay. Same. Some areas more, some areas less. The best way to approach this painting is to leave some white spaces. White spaces is the thing that's going to create the depth here. Okay. So I know it's very exciting to just throw a lot of paint on your paper, but white spaces is something that really creates the balance in this painting. I'm going to say take some really thick paint right now, dark brown or sepia. And while it's wet, I want to create these darker lines. It's too wet, so I'm going to wait it out. Okay. Except at the bottom. So a little bit more, I need to wait so that I can create these dark incisions here or the lines here to make it look real. If you think your paint is spreading out or blooming, it's too early. Just wait it out. Or it could also be that your paint is quite thin. I'm taking really thick paint here, almost like you can say butter consistency. You can see butter will not flow, right? So just think in that term. Okay. I'm going to wait it out again for like 5 minutes. or like 1 or 2 minutes, sorry, and so that you get a chance to catch up. Just smoothing some edges out here. Okay. Just smoothing some edges. If you feel it's really hard lines here, just take a damp brush and soften it very lightly. You don't want the other layers of paints to be disturbed. So lightly, very lightly. Okay. Next, we can move on to um, this area. Okay. Now I have to remember one thing, that this is lighter and this is darker. Same, this is lighter, this is darker. Okay. So just keep in mind a little bit of this lightness and darkness. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to wet this area slightly. Okay. And take some of this paint. Again, just using a different combination of these colors, so, or mostly warms, so that they look a little different each time. Okay, some darker areas here. And take some darker paints. It's the right time to add those dark areas. Okay, I'm not going to disturb this, just leave it as it is, because it may ruin it. Next, we'll follow on to the next layer. Okay, I'm right here already, so let me complete this area. Okay, just be easier. Okay, and just have to remember that how much dark, you can see these are really dark areas, very, very dark, kind of dark, but this is also a bit dark compared to this. So keep in mind how much paint you're picking, and not just take like really thick paint, because you won't be able to balance it out and it won't look three-dimensional. Okay, so I'm going to save my darkest dark here. Okay, so keeping this in mind, I'm going to again wet this area. Picking up similar colors that we have already used in different combinations, because you don't want to look everything the same yellow, the same brown. So a little bit of different combinations. Maybe you take a little more of brown, maybe you take a little more of those reds or pinks that you have, just to give it a little variety. I'm take this little dark brown here. And create this really dark areas. A little bit of purple. Some of these dark areas already here. Okay. And I'm going to just leave it. If you have any questions, please let us know. I'll just give you guys a minute to catch up, and then we'll move on to the next layer. Okay, we can move on now. Um, just to make it a little interesting, we need to add some greens here, just so that it looks like they're sitting around a tree or a branch. So we're going to add some yellows and greens to make it look realistic. So I do have yellow. I'm just going to make some green here. Okay, just a little bit. Greens. Make it look a little more like lively, and that cool colors will give some balance to the painting. Because if you're just painting the reds and the browns, it look too boring, too monotonous. So we can also add a little bit of here. Although the drawing doesn't say, but just to balance it out a little bit. Okay. Okay, so we got some greens here. Then we can um, maybe do this branch that's sitting on the side. And again, it's going to have all those browns and reds. So I'm going to start with a little bit of brown and some red. keeping in mind that can't make it too dark very quickly because the other sides are very, very dark. So keep that in mind. Everything in any painting is relative to the next thing that's next to it. So it's important that you see the painting as a whole and not just like that part, because once you start painting, you'll get lost, and then not look very three-dimensional. So it's important that you look at the painting as a whole, how dark things are, which is the darkest area, which is really the lightest area, and where exactly you want to focus. That's very, very important in when you do a painting. Otherwise, things look very flat and boring, and then you'll be surprised, like why this look three-dimensional. So that's something that takes time with some practice. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. With some really dark areas. Okay. Then we can take a small pause and just see in general, like how your painting is going. Where do you want to go next? Because I can also get lost in a painting and then keep moving and moving. But sometimes it takes a minute to realize that some things are not in place. So just take a pause whenever you're painting. The best thing to get up from your seat and take a step back, because you will just see your painting in a better light. Because when you're too close to your painting, you may not see all the flaws, but as soon as you see it from a distance, you really see that where things are lacking and how you can fix them. It is usually the consistency of the paint, how light or how dark it is. So we'll get on this area again, super light. Okay, next we can um, go to this critical areas. And for this, I'm going to cut short my brush size because this is too big. And Yeah, I need to go in smaller. Again, the colors remain similar, this similarly same. I'm going to first go with these darker areas because I want to get them there, and then go in this lighter areas because I may lose track of them. So I'm just going to take some dark brown, purple mix and just go in and do this eye. This is critical. So I don't want to lose the shape. Okay. Same way here. Go light in on the top and then darker on the bottom. Okay. Later, let's do this lighter areas, keeping some empty spaces here. Okay. So I'm going to do the same. Take some of these lighter paints, really light. You can see my palette keeps drying because how dry it is inside. Some dark areas, just a little bit. I'm just going to soften this a little bit because I think it got some harsh lines. Just taking a damp brush and softening in. Okay. Then maybe I'll move away from this area for a bit just so that I don't get confused with what I am painting and where. So it's just sometimes nice to get away with some congested areas. I think we can finish this area. Okay, there isn't much here, but I'm just going to keep it simple with some lighter and darker tones of brown. It's the branches. Take a little bit of dark brown and give a little bit of definition to these hard line branches here. Okay. Some green here. Okay. After this, we can move on to the second koala face. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing again. First, go in a little bit of darks with the eyes and the nose, and then we can move on to the ears and those lighter areas. Okay, I'm going to take some dark purple here. Just tiny bit of brown, and go in slowly here. Some pink here, a little bit of purple, make it a little more dark. Okay, just remember, I keep looking constantly where it's light, where it's dark, and that's what is going to make or break this painting. So just be careful about that, and the rest will be taken care automatically. You won't even realize how this painting became 3D, and it'll look real to you. Okay, take a little bit of pink. I'm going to add some here. Take a little bit of brown or purple. Just lighten it up. And take some darks here to add some thickness and some depth here. Okay. After this, we're going to move to this hairy ears that you can see. And again, I'm going to keep it super light with some yellows and some pinks first. It's the first layer. And then I can just add more depth to it with some darker colors, some brown. Some darks. And take really light. I'm just pulling some color from this ear and making like the face structure here. So wherever I see some dark is required, I'll just add that. Okay. Okay. You can see that how things have come together in a short time. Okay. We still have some more layers to go and we'll be done soon. But before that, we're going to tackle this really dark area. Okay. And I'm going to just mix a lot of paint. Wet this area. Okay. So I really got this dark layer here. And I may have to add more layers once it's dry because watercolors dry a little lighter. So you never know that you might need some more layers. Okay, this is good. Uh, Next, I just want to soften a few things here before they dry completely. Okay. Okay. I'll let this dry for a minute. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some dry layers now. Okay. Because we are almost done with the first and second layers of the painting. But we need some more texture on it just to make it look real, the fur. Okay. So just give me a minute and we'll do that. Until then, you can just catch up with your painting. But I just need to add a little more layer onto this. If you have any questions, do let us know. And just remember that, whatever you like to paint, I'll try to do it in the class, because sometimes some people want to do flowers, some people want to do animals. So whatever you want to do, just put it in the chat and I'll look up for some ideas that we can paint in this short period of time. Okay. So, and definitely when you finish the painting, please send me your paintings and I'll give you a written feedback, a detailed feedback. And if you want to know more about the supplies and the paints and the paper that I use, I'll be happy to share it with you.
And I also put Megha and my own email address in there for if you have ideas or want to send us pictures of your paintings. We'd love to see them.
Yeah. Okay. I was just looking for some eraser, but I cannot. So that's fine. I just wanted to clean this up, but that's okay. Let's get into some details now. You can see that some things I'm going to fix. That is mostly uh, the hard structures that I see. I feel that this, we're going to do small strokes like this to add texture to the painting. Okay. So again, doesn't matter what color as long as how dark or light it is. So I'm going to take some purples here, darker, just to give it a little bit of texture here. Same here. You can also take browns, just adding some textures. So I'm going to take some just light and dark paints to add some textures wherever I see it needs some darks. You can use different colors, different small strokes, large strokes, anything that will make it look real. You can see that a little bit of dry brushing here can make things look super real. I'm going to take some dark browns here and create some more texture here. Make it look like the tree bark. Okay. And you can see that we've got a lot of layers here, and I don't want to disturb the painting more because I think it's good enough. It's up to you if you want to leave this empty or if you want to add some more greens. Maybe I'll add some more yellows and greens just to give some balance of yellow and some green. I think it gives a little bit of glow to the painting. All right. I think this looks very good. And of course, don't forget to sign your painting. Don't sign it in the middle. Always sign it somewhere in the side where it's seen but not ruining the painting. So sign your name and be happy, be content with what you have created because uh, this is a form of meditation, something so enjoyable uh, for people, and it really relaxes your mind. And I hope you paint more and more. So definitely let us know what you want to paint next. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today and painting with me on this frigid Tuesday morning.